Hello! Welcome to the first minifigure video. Rather than a Lego build, today we're going to be making and together we're going to be designing some minifigures, specifically a crew, to go with the Geist build. And we are starting out with Numa specifically from Star Wars Rebels. First appeared in the Clone Wars. We're basing this on her Rebels version. But yeah, anyway, so I'm using the program Inkscape just to do some vectors and all that. So yeah, I really like Numa's design that they used in Rebels. It has some really cool references to Waxer and Boyle, who she meets in the original episodes she appeared in when she was a little girl. And I just think it was a really cool inclusion. It worked really well. And I just figured if any of the Ryloth Freedom Fighter members that we see in the episode she appears in Rebels were to go on to serve the Greater Rebellion, it would probably be Numa. So she's probably the most likely candidate to serve on board the Geist out of any of them, and I really wanted to make one of them, so yeah. I'm glad that Numa made sense too, because she's definitely my favorite. So we got the basic design done for her torso, and now I'm just I'm just designing the outline of the little doll that she has on the side of her chest, which is another reference to her Clone Wars episode. And just putting that right there, and mirroring the main chest section. Getting all that nice working. Getting all of that to work and look nice. And yeah, I'm just messing with the lower torso section to make sure that's all even and line it up with I don't know what you would call that. Like, Lego has these little indents on the side of the stomach, I guess, area where on minifigure, or specifically on minifigures meant to represent women, to kind of give them a slimmer build. So I was just, luckily Numa's torso is black, so it kind of meshes really well with the rest of the design. And I'm not a huge fan of that design choice, but I'm really trying to, there's nothing wrong with it really, but I'm mostly trying to emulate Lego's style with these sort of things, so that's something that they do, so I'm going to do it as well. And I'm just putting doing her arm now, which is just clone armor, painted to look, it has the words Boyle on it, which I don't include here just because it was a little too much detail and it looked a little busy. And then it had the symbol up top, which I just did, and I just made it a gradient because it's kind of worn on her armor in the episode. And that's really the best way to emulate it without killing myself. So now we're going to do her belt. One of her belts. Specifically the clone belt that she wears around her, I can't think of the word. Her waist area, yeah. And we're gonna put some boots on there. That just to represent some dual molded legs that we will be using for her. I'm giving her a little pocket. Yeah, it's pretty simple stuff. I usually don't have it set up this way to make it, because in the past when I've done minifigure designs, on the rare occasion, they're kind of more disjointed, so I had to completely redesign the template that I used specifically for this figure, because I knew that I wanted to do that belt across like all of those 3 pieces, and my original design had them kind of all separate from each other, and I just figured this would be so much easier, and look, it was. So glad I did that. And she has, on the side of this belt, has a little ammo pouch I'm just going to represent that with some 2D little pocket. And it's not the perfect solution, but it definitely works. And would probably be what LEGO would do, even though I doubt LEGO would use this much detail. But still. And I'm emulating Hera's eyes. They did something interesting with her for the Rebel sets where they kind of gave her... I'm not even going to try to think of the word right now, I'm sorry. But they gave her color inside of her eyes, which I don't think they've specifically done it this way before. They might have done it on another Star Wars figure, but they definitely haven't done it outside of Star Wars. They've done, like, you know, for the Clone Wars series, they had the more stylized, cartoony eyes, and they've done that in a few other places as well, but I think this is the first time they specifically did this style, and it kind of stays in line with the regular LEGO aesthetic so much better than all the other ones, while still giving it kind of a distinct look. And it's not even because the character is from Rebels or anything, it's more like, I think, just because she's alien, and it's kind of make it look a little more different and unique. So we're pretty much done. I'm just going to move on to the Leku piece. I'm using a little, I guess, template. I'm basing it off of Hera's, the textures for Hera piece. The textures for the headpiece in the LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens video game that features Hera. And I actually do end up having to rework that because the models for the pieces I'm using used a very different layout for this, but I just wanted to base it off that. And I'm trying to include her scarf on the top of her head. That's a nice pattern in it, which I'm going to try to include by just emulating the pattern, then scaling it down and pasting it all over this whole thing, and trying not to get too in the way of everything else. And I have to scale it down quite a bit from where it was originally, and then try to make sure that it's not going to get in the way of other pieces of the build, or other parts. I keep confusing this with a LEGO build video apparently, but like other parts of the design. So we pretty much finished Numa. Now we're moving on to the rest of the crew. And I'm just going to use the same torso and everything for them, but I'm basing it off of the comic where the Geist actually appears, and we get a little bit of a shot of the interior and see a few characters on the bridge. So I'm kind of basing it, as you can see, I have the comic panel specifically right there, and I'm just going to base the design off of what we see in that panel. So yeah, it's just pretty generic. It's nothing really special. But, I mean, they're there, so you gotta recreate that. And a lot of this is just experimenting. 'Cause one of the things that I really struggle with in minifigure design specifically is folds in fabric. And I had to do a little bit of that there. In this design. So I struggle with that a little bit, but I think it ends up being alright. Yeah, just ignore this part right here. I'm trying to do it. I think we'll actually use this little section. This actually ends up being used because I moved the belt up from that hip piece just to put it on the torso, because that looks a lot nicer and more fluid. And it works with the design of the figure, so I'll move these up when I do that. But they're kind of to emulate the folds in the fabric as it's tucked into a belt or pants. So yeah, I thought it was really cool to see different crews on different Rebel ships being composed, because mostly what we see is humans, especially, not as much with the Rebels, but it's still a lot. So it's really nice to get some alien diversity, especially with Rebels, because you'd think that they would be mostly alien, considering how xenophobic the Empire is. So I always love seeing more aliens in the Rebel forces. So yeah, we're just going to use pretty much the same design from Numa's belt and put it there, and I'll end up moving it later. And I tried to do a little pocket on the side here, but it wasn't working at all. And I couldn't get it to look like it looked on, it was pretty hard to emulate the style, or the design that was seen in the comic for their pockets. So I just ended up getting rid of that because it was just too much. It just made things too complicated when they didn't need to be. So yeah, so we're moving this belt up and then putting the folds in the fabric there, and we'll put some more underneath the belt as well to simulate the jacket puffing out. And we're going to do different faces for all. I have space for 4 in the final Geist build for the interior. So we're just going to do 4 different faces and kind of change them up as much as we can. Some of them are based off of what little we see in the comics and the characters we see there, but some of them are also, just pretty generic, trying to change it up as much as I can. Yeah, and I wanted to get as much color diversity in there as well as I could, just because the Twi'lek have a lot of different colors, and I feel like they're a really diverse species that I'd love to see. I just always love seeing them in Star Wars media because there's so much you can do with them and they're so diverse. So I wanted to make sure I represented that and give them lots of different colors. And I'm putting goggles on this one just because I'm basing it off of the one next to Hera in the comic strip above. So we're going to include that, and I'm changing them up as much as I can, making sure there's enough diversity to be realistic, and they're all a little bit different. And I'm mostly using, especially right here, I pretty much just use Numa's face design for some of these, but I changed them up as much as I could. But just, sometimes it's hard to completely change each design in something like this, where pretty much everything's mostly the same. And instead of using Hera's texture, I used Aayla Secura's for them, just because it was a better fit for the design I was trying to do for some of them, and it's really simple. I'm just giving them a little scarf on the head for certain ones and making other ones just blank so they aren't wearing anything, which is also representative of what we see in the comic. And there you go, there's the final render. You got Numa in the middle, and I included Hera in there just for fun. And yeah, I'm really proud of all of them. I love Numa especially, which is great because she's my favorite out of the group. So there you go. I hope you look forward to seeing them in the final build. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and have a good day.